Okay, we are finally back on this Bina-View build. I've been doing quite a bit of work on it. Like I said, I'm still waiting to get into a print shop somewhere and to get those slides printed. But I went ahead and mounted the lift mechanism. Sorry, get it in view here. I mounted the lift mechanism on a plexiglass base plate. That's more than 1/4 inch, not half, 3/8 probably, something like that. I decided to make this whole thing out of plexiglass so you can like see everything as it's working. So we saw last time the lifting mechanism. This is what lifts all the slides up. So I mounted that, and I also mounted the solenoid that will lift that tray. Now the solenoid, I kind of cheated here. This is an automotive door lock solenoid. This technically isn't a real solenoid because this is a motor driven. You can actually hear the motor turning and the gears as you move it. I did buy an actual solenoid to do that job. And when I was looking, I saw, focus, 20 newtons. And that's probably about 4.5 pounds, give or take a little bit, give or take half a pound. And I'm thinking that should be plenty to pull it. So I ordered it, but the thing is I ordered a 12 volt. And as you can see, they sent me a 24 volt. I want this whole thing to run off of 12 volts. So I was going to send it back, get another one, but this is only like $8. And I'm like, I can use it for something else. You know, the shipping, by the time I pay for shipping, is for something cheap like this. I mean, I'll use it for something else. But when I was playing around with it, I noticed that if I held it and put power to it, I could keep it from pulling really easy. But if I let it pull, then it took a lot of force to break it loose. So I bet you that 20 newtons is the holding force and not the pulling force. And I really need a pulling force. So I decided to not buy another one of these just because, like I said, I think the holding force is more than the pulling force. I needed something much more stronger. So while I was looking for solenoids, that's when I found this on eBay. And even though it's not technically a solenoid, it does have the same end result. It just takes 2 wires for power and ground. It just moves straight in, but it actually pulls in much faster than I expected. And it's powerful, it's strong, it's got just as much pulling force as it does holding force. So, and not only that, but the guy who was selling this, it was unused new stock, unused old new stock, if that makes any sense. He only wanted $3 for it. I mean, come on, at $3, I couldn't afford to not buy it. So again, I'm kind of cheating a little bit by using this instead of an actual solenoid. But when I'm building something this big, I mean, this is probably 4 times the size as a real Bina-View. I needed something that could lift a lot of weight. So as you can already see, I put it on a linkage connected here. That's just a piece of brass I turned down, drilled a hole through it for a strap, and then a piece, some pivot points. And by doing it this way, this is about a 3-to-1 mechanical advantage. So I'm getting 3 times the force, but 1/3 the movement, which is perfectly fine because I don't need that to move a whole lot. But anyways, this is done. The lifting mechanism is done. Now I printed this piece to fit over top here because I needed some spacing. Yeah, I know there's a hole in it. When I printed this, it printed on the bed this way, and I set up the slicer for just 1 layer bottom. It kind of just screwed up here when I pulled it off the bed because it was stuck really, really well. But that's okay. It doesn't matter. So that'll get glued on here. So then I needed to figure out how high to space the whole tray of slides. So I basically just sat it on there with just junk pieces of stuff until I got the right spacing. Figured out how high that needed to be. And so I cut out more acrylic sheets. I used brass threaded inserts and 440 screws, and you just drill the hole. You put a soldering iron on the brass insert and push it in, and it'll melt in. So this will then sit over top just like that. So now that pushes those slides up, and it only needs to push them up like 2 millimeters. which it's pretty much exactly. I got the spacing and the height just right, so when this pulls all the way back, it lifts those slides up 2 millimeters. Eventually, these plexiglass spacers will be bonded on here. So that'll be part of the base permanent. And if I need to take this apart, I just pull those screws out and this whole thing will lift up. So when the time comes, I will CA along the edge here, and I will stick that in place, but I don't want to do that just yet. I want to get some other stuff worked out. Okay, now, some of the other stuff I need to work out is the actual 6 keys that select which one of these drops down. And I made one of them, looks like this. I made one before, like that, but it was wrong size. That's just a piece soldered on. What I did, I laid the solder on this side, and the heat just pulled it up. It's kind of hard to tell, but if you get a magnifying glass on that, it did go through all the way to the other side. So that will sit under this, and there'll be 6 of them. This is the piece that will hold that. Again, there's 6 of them. And I had to figure out how high to make that. This will go right on the front there. And so this goes in like that. And it had to be high enough to clear all of this, or to clear the arms on the lifter. And then back here, there will be a solenoid that will flip it left or right this way to select, you know, energize, relax, to select the different digits. And again, there'll be 6 of those. I only made 1 so far, so I got to do 5 more of these, which are pretty easy. They're not too hard. And the solenoids on the other side, I'm going to be using these little guys. Now these aren't very powerful, but they only need to flip that back or forth. There's like no load on it. You know, the only resistance to that is whatever friction is at those points, which won't be much. So for the solenoids, I printed out a holder so you can see that'll hold 3. So I'll have one of these over here, and I'll have another one right there. So I have 3 of the rods here, and then 3 of the rods here. And so this, we can go ahead and just kind of set that in place. Like that. And that'll be positioned far enough back so the arm doesn't hit it there. So that's pretty much perfect right there. And this one will be attached to this solenoid. I still need to solder an arm that will connect that shaft down to that solenoid. The other one will go to the middle one, and the last one will go to the top one right there. Let's see, what else? So, oh, and that'll be screwed to the base with 3 slotted holes. They're slotted just in case I need to adjust that in or out at all that way. So I can fine tune, you know, I'll do my best to screw it down centered, but if I need to make fine tune adjustments back or forth, I can. Because that blade, all of those blades have to fit within about a 2 millimeter gap here. Right in there. So I can adjust them back and forth as need be. And I don't know if you can hear the printer running in the background, but the printer is printing up the other one of these that will go here. And of course the solenoids are just screwed on from the bottom. Each solenoid gets 2 screws, but you'll notice I have twice as many holes as I need. That's what happens when you don't pay attention. Let me show you what I did. When I was drafting that out, I was looking at the solenoid, and I had my calipers, and I measured, you know, I measured that dimension, I measured that dimension, I measured that distance, and just to double check, I measured that distance, and I laid it all out, and I printed it, but I forgot that I was taking all the dimensions on the bottom surface from looking at the top. When you flip that over, the holes are then wrong. So that's why, see, these holes were all the ones that printed, but they were wrong because I was top instead of bottom. So I just re-drilled in the holes I needed. I hope that makes sense. Bottom line is double, triple check your work. when you're looking at the top of something that's going to become the bottom on a piece that you're drawing that's on the top, it's going to be backwards. So pay attention to what you're doing, because I screwed up. But it worked. I got all three on now. Wires are just kind of clamped out of the way or tied out of the way. And so that's the little solenoid dingies right there. All right. Now to attach the solenoid to the rocker arm, I just cut the slot and bent it over that way. So now I can come in like that. And that works. And then all I have to do is pull the shaft forward and then out, and that's it. That's done. So this is probably the way I'm going to do it. Just like that. Probably how I'm going to do it. And that line is where I'll cut it and then solder it to the shaft. All right, so yeah, I think it's coming along pretty good. I like it. I'm going to put this on right here, and then I'll show you kind of a view of what it looks like with all the clear panels and why I want it to be all clear. Here, hold on a second. So I spent a lot of time making that lifting mechanism, so it would kind of be a shame if it was all hidden when it was done. So you'll be able to see everything as it's moving. Here you can see those slides moving up and down. Right? Obviously the keys aren't in it, so I can't select one to not move. But anyways, so far so good. I like it. It's working. Here you go. Nice action shot from my printer. And so as soon as that's done, I get some more stuff made, then we'll take a look at what it looks like. So there's the solenoid side. And the little. I just got to do that 5 more times. Alright, so I now have all of the mechanical done, all the mechanisms done. I have all of the wiring done, well, except for those 2 wires, but those are going to the lights. I'll talk about the light here in a second, or a minute or 2. But the mechanism stuff's done. The solenoids are installed. Everything's wired to, I mean, you can't see that, can you? One of those 9-pin D-sub connectors. More about that in a second. And, well, let me just turn it on and show you what it does. Okay, so I threw together, in order to control this manually, I threw together a little switch box, have some toggle switches, one for each 6 digits for the solenoids. 2 buttons, one is for the lift solenoid, and one is to send the data out to the unit. The power and ground wires I just have hooked up to a 12 volt, well, it's a car battery charger, just giving me the 12 volts that I need. I just use alligator clips for this. And so all of the wires coming out through this harness cable here, and then to the D-sub connector. Now my wiring here isn't the nicest. Normally I like for my wiring to look a little bit better than this, so I may go back later and tidy that up just a little bit, maybe. I don't know. I just need to stop rambling and show you how it works. So, the way we work this, we flip a switch and then we send the data out with this push button. So that is the far right bit, which is this one. So we push that button. So you set, whatever word you want, and then you can see them. So that's the first, third, and fifth one. So then I push that button, you can see that one, and that one. So you can see the little flippy things moving. I can put them all up, and of course they're all moving now. Of course that one got stuck again. Yeah. If this whole thing is a complete failure, I honestly, I could stand here and I could just do that all day. One of them got stuck. There we go. So it's like every once in a while one will get stuck. I will be putting a little bit of lubrication on that later. I mean, I'll probably tear it all down once more and Just kind of go through everything and lube everything and fine tune and polish and sand everything a little bit. It'll probably work better. So, and of course we have the lift mechanism that's coming from this other button. So I push that, and it doesn't go all the way back down now because there's no weight on it. But you can see now how that will lift all the slides up. So what you do is you set the digits for whatever you want, and then you set those and then lift and drop it. So that's the motion you go to set the digits. So let me put the cage on, and we'll put some slides in place, and then we'll see how that goes. Okay, hopefully you'll be able to see what's going on here. I'll change the camera angle here in a second. But right now, these are all the ones that I have printed. I didn't want to continue printing in case it didn't work, you know. Right now, these sides bulge out just a little bit, so some of these that are being held up by this side tend to lean down a little bit over here, but that'll be fixed later. You can see that one right there is coming up as I squeeze, because I'm going to put a rail along here, and there'll be springs. There'll be a spring holding all of those down. So that will kind of bring that tolerance back in once I put that on. So that might cause a few issues. But if we kind of go through some of these, what I'll do is, and this is my first time trying with all these in, so I don't know how it's going to work. So we'll just flip the first one. Right now, they're all being held up about 1 millimeter, except for this one, which is 0. So it's going 1 through 9, then 0. So if I had the transparencies in here and I had a light on, then theoretically you would see 0. So if I flip for number 1 and change it, lift and drop, that number 1 here is dropped. All the others are being held up. Again, when I squeeze that in, that should bring those up, and that one. So that should be that one's down. So as I cycle through, you'll see each one lower and all the other ones raised. So if I go 2, oh, for some reason my number 2 slide is not sliding there, so now it's down, and all the others should be up. So go 3, and so now that one's down. 4, so that one's down. 5, that one's down. 6, that one's down. Actually 7, that one's down. I don't know if you can see that in that view or not. Let me change camera angles, and we'll look at this again. Okay, hopefully this is kind of a better angle. So again, that one's down, that would be 0. So I'm going to flip number 1. And again, the 2 slide is a little bit sticky. Doesn't want to drop down. So we'll go 2. And that seems like some of them. Oh yeah. For some reason, all of those. There we go. You know what is happening? It's lifting it a little bit too high. It's lifting it a little bit too high, and I think some of those slots are popping off the keys. Yeah, that's what's happening. They're coming up too far and they're popping off of that track. Let me see if I can fix that. All right, let's try this again. Let's go number 3. And so that's that one right there dropped. So I'll go number 4, and then when I set it, that one should stay up and that one should drop. And that was that one. So if I go number 5, then when I set it, again, that one should stay up and that one should drop. Okay, now it's working good. Now it's working the way I like it. And so I'll go number 6. Next one back. That one's dropped. Go 7. Next one back will go. All right, now it's working. Let's try 8. 9, 10, and it skipped 1 because that would be 0, so that's actually A. But anyways, it seems to be working. And I think that's that one. I might have skipped a digit, but yeah, that's the general principle. I think so far so good. Obviously, it needs a little bit of fine tuning, a little bit of trimming. Next video, hopefully next video will be the last one. We'll get all the slides printed, we'll get the light box in the back of it, and hopefully by the end of the next video it'll be done and we'll be able to actually see this thing make some digits. And I still need to make all the springs that help hold them down. And that's the, right there, that's the screw I adjusted to not lift it as high, because it was lifting too high and coming off of the rails back here. That's what was messing up earlier. So anyways, as always, until next time, thanks for watching.